The disciplinary office was cold and quiet. Cadet Hyun stood at attention in the center of the room. His 4 arms crossed over his chest. His chitinous armor gleamed under the harsh lights. He was 7 feet tall and built like a war machine. His face showed no regret, no shame, no fear. This was his 5th disciplinary hearing this month alone. Commander Day sat behind his desk, staring at the datapad in front of him. The report was long. Too long. 3 fellow cadets injured in unprovoked attacks. 2 training rooms destroyed. 1 instructor threatened. Countless violations of Academy protocol. The commander rubbed his temples with his clawed fingers. He was Valkyrie too, like Hyun. But he had learned discipline decades ago during the border wars. Cadet 13, Commander Day said, using Hyun's official designation. Do you understand why you are here? Yes, Commander, Hyun replied. His voice was flat and bored. Then explain it to me. I defended my honor. Those cadets insulted the Valkyrie people. I responded as any warrior would. Commander Day slammed his hand on the desk. The sound echoed through the room. They asked you to pass them a data slate. That is not an insult. Hyun's mandibles twitched. It was the closest thing to a shrug his species could manage. They should have asked with proper respect. The commander stood up. He was older than Hyun and carried scars from real battles, not academy training exercises. This is the Galactic Military Academy. We train officers from 200 species. We do not have time for your pride. Then perhaps you should not have accepted me, Hyun said. It was true, and they both knew it. Hyun came from a powerful Valkyrie family. His father was a fleet admiral. His mother served on the Galactic Council. The Academy could not simply expel him without causing a diplomatic incident. The Valkyrie government had made that very clear. Commander Day sat back down. He looked tired. Cadet 13. You have more natural combat ability than any student I have seen in 20 years. But ability means nothing without discipline, without teamwork, without honor. I have honor, Hyun said. His voice was sharp now. I am Valkyrie. Honor is our foundation. No. You have pride. Pride and honor are not the same thing. The commander pulled up another file on his datapad. I am assigning you to mandatory counseling sessions. I am also restricting you to base for the next month. No leave. No personal time. You will attend every class and every training session. If you miss even one, I will find a way to remove you from this academy, political connections or not. Hyun said nothing. His compound eyes stared at the commander without blinking. Dismissed, Commander Day said. Hyun turned and left the office. His heavy footsteps echoed down the corridor. Other cadets saw him coming and moved to the side. They were afraid of him. Good. Fear was respect. In the training hall, Instructor Bora was preparing the day's exercises. She was a tall, slender creature from the Sirath species, with pale blue skin and large eyes. She saw Hyun enter and her shoulders tensed. She had been teaching at the academy for 5 years. Hyun was the worst student she had ever encountered. Cadet 13, she said. You are late. I was meeting with Commander Day, Hyun replied. Again. It was not a question. Take your position. The other cadets were already paired up for sparring exercises. No one wanted to pair with Hyun. He fought too hard, too rough. He did not understand the concept of practice. Every fight was real to him. Instructor, I need a partner, Hyun said. Bora looked around the room. Every cadet suddenly became very interested in their equipment. You will practice forms alone today. Solo drills. Tross. That is not proper training. It is the training you will receive until you learn control. Bora's voice was firm. She was afraid of Hyun too, but she hid it better than the students did. Hyun moved to an empty corner of the training hall. He began running through combat forms, his 4 arms moving in complex patterns. He was skilled. Even Bora had to admit that. His movements were precise and powerful. But this was not a real battle. This was an academy, and Hyun could not understand the difference. After training, Hyun returned to his quarters. The room was small and bare. He preferred it that way. Most cadets decorated their spaces with items from home, photos of family, personal belongings. Hyun had only his weapons and his armor. That was all a warrior needed. He sat on his bunk and accessed the academy network on his datapad. There was a message from his father. Hyun opened it reluctantly. "I have heard about your continued problems," the message read. "You shame our family with your lack of discipline. The Valkyrie people are warriors, yes, but we are also leaders. We are diplomats. We build alliances. Your grandfather did not fight in the unification wars, so you could brawl with children in a training hall. Control yourself, or I will disown you." Hyun deleted the message without responding. His father did not understand. None of them understood. The Valkyrie had become soft. They talked about alliances and diplomacy. They forgot what made them strong. They forgot that strength was all that mattered in the galaxy. That evening, there was an announcement over the Academy's communication system. All instructors and senior cadets were to report to the main auditorium for a briefing. Hyun did not care about briefings, but attendance was mandatory. He went. The auditorium was massive, with seats for 5,000 beings. It was only half full. Commander Day stood on the central platform with several other senior officers. "Thank you all for coming," Commander Day began. "I have an announcement regarding our instructor roster. As you know, the Galactic Academy participates in an exchange program with newly contacted species. This helps us understand different cultures and combat styles." Hyun barely listened. He had heard this speech before. Some new alien would arrive, teach for a semester, and leave. It meant nothing to him. "Next week, we will be welcoming Lieutenant Tae from the planet Earth. Humanity made first contact with the Galactic Council 18 months ago. Lieutenant Tae will be serving as a combat instructor and cultural liaison." There were murmurs in the audience. Humanity was new. Very new. No one knew much about them. They came from a planet in a remote arm of the galaxy. Early reports suggested they were small, fragile, and technologically primitive. "I expect all of you to treat Lieutenant Tae with the respect due to any officer," Commander Day continued. Dismissed. The cadets filed out of the auditorium. "Humans are supposed to be tiny," one cadet said. "I heard they have no natural armor at all," another added. "Why would they send someone like that to teach combat?" Hyun did not join the conversation. He did not care about humans. He did not care about any species except his own. This human instructor would be like all the others, weak, afraid, useless. He returned to his quarters and began cleaning his weapons. Tomorrow would be another day of pointless exercises and tedious lectures. Another day of pretending to listen to instructors who had never faced real combat. Another day in this prison they called an academy, but Hyun was wrong about one thing. Tomorrow would be different. Tomorrow would change everything. Because Lieutenant Tae was not like other instructors, and the small creature traveling with him was about to teach Cadet 13 what fear truly meant. The transport ship arrived exactly on schedule. Commander Day stood in the docking bay with several other instructors. They watched as the airlock cycled open, and the passengers began to emerge. Most were supply personnel and maintenance workers. Then they saw him. Lieutenant Tae was not impressive at first glance. He stood just under 6 feet tall, which made him small by galactic standards. He wore a simple uniform with minimal decorations. His hair was black and cut short. His skin was tan. He moved with an easy confidence that seemed out of place for someone so physically unremarkable. But what caught everyone's attention was the small container he carried. It was a pet carrier, made of some kind of metal mesh. Something small moved inside it. "Commander Day?" Lieutenant Tae said, approaching the welcoming group. His galactic standard was perfect, with only a slight accent. "Lieutenant Tae, welcome to Academy Station Zenith 7. Commander Day extended his hand in the human greeting he had researched. Tay shook it firmly. Thank you, Commander. I appreciate the opportunity to serve here. Instructor Bora stepped forward. She was staring at the pet carrier. Lieutenant, what is that? Tay smiled. He set the carrier down and opened the front panel. A small orange creature emerged. It had 4 legs, a long tail, and large green eyes. Its body was covered in soft fur. It made a strange vibrating sound. This is Nabi, Tay said. She's a cat. Felis catus. My emotional support animal. Earth Command approved her travel. The instructors stared. The creature was tiny, maybe 4 kilograms at most. It walked in a circle around Tay's legs, still making that odd vibrating noise. It is cute, Bora said carefully. Tay corrected gently. And yes, most people think so. Commander Day frowned. Is it dangerous? Only to small rodents and insects. Tay picked up the cat. She settled into his arms, still vibrating. Cats are predators on Earth, but they're domesticated. We've kept them as companions for about 10,000 years. Predators? Another instructor, a large insectoid named Quan, leaned closer. It hunts? In her spare time, yes. But she's well fed. Mostly, she sleeps and demands attention. As if to prove his point, Nabi yawned, showing small, sharp teeth. Then, she closed her eyes and appeared to fall asleep instantly. The instructors looked at each other. This was unusual, but not against regulations. Many species kept companion animals. If Earth Command had approved it, they could not object. Very well, Commander Day said. Let us show you to your quarters, Lieutenant. They walked through the station's corridors. Tay carried Nabi in his arms. Other cadets stopped to stare. They had never seen a human before, and they certainly had never seen a cat. Some pointed. Some whispered. Tay ignored them politely. Hyun was in the corridor when they passed. He was returning from combat training, still wearing his practice armor. He saw the small human carrying the even smaller creature. His mandibles clicked in amusement. This was their new instructor? This tiny being with a useless pet? Lieutenant Tay noticed him. Their eyes met. Hyun felt something strange in that moment. The human's eyes were not afraid. They were not aggressive. They were calm and analytical, like a scientist observing an interesting specimen. It was unsettling, but Hyun pushed the feeling aside. The human was nothing. A curiosity. Nothing more. That afternoon, Lieutenant Tay attended his first instructor meeting. He sat quietly while Commander Day explained the Academy's training protocols. Nabi sat on the table in front of Tay, grooming herself. Several instructors kept glancing at her. Lieutenant Tay, Commander Day said, we have assigned you to combat theory and tactical analysis. You will begin teaching next week. Do you have any questions? Just one, Tay said. I reviewed the cadet files you sent me. There's one student flagged in every report. Cadet 13. Hyun. Should I be aware of any specific concerns? The room became quiet. All the instructors looked at each other. Cadet 13 is difficult, Bora said carefully. He is extremely skilled but has no discipline. He sees combat training as real combat. He has injured multiple cadets. He comes from a powerful family, Commander Day added. We cannot expel him easily. I see. Tay stroked Nabi's back thoughtfully. The cat purred louder. Has anyone tried understanding why he behaves this way? He is Velkari, Instructor Quan said. As if that explained everything. Their culture values individual combat prowess above all else. Cooperation is seen as weakness. Interesting. Tay made a note on his datapad. I'd like to include him in my first combat assessment class. Commander Day frowned. Lieutenant, I must warn you. Cadet 13 does not respect authority. He will likely challenge you directly. He is very strong and very fast. I do not want you injured on your first week. Tay smiled. It was a small smile, but there was something in it that made the other instructors pause. I appreciate your concern, Commander, but I think Cadet 13 and I should meet properly. That evening, word spread through the academy. The new human instructor wanted to assess Cadet 13 personally. Cadets whispered about it in the dining hall and training rooms. Most thought the human was foolish. Some thought he was brave. A few thought he had a death wish. Hyun heard the news from another cadet. He laughed. The sound was harsh and mocking. The human wants to test me? Good. I will show him what real combat looks like. In his quarters, Lieutenant Tay was unpacking his belongings. Nabi explored the space, sniffing every corner. She jumped onto the desk, then onto a shelf, then onto the top of a storage locker. Her movements were fluid and silent. Tay watched her for a moment. What do you think, Nabi? Should I go easy on him? The cat meowed once. It sounded like a negative. I thought you'd say that. Later that night, Hyun was walking back to his quarters after a late training session. The corridors were mostly empty. He turned a corner and froze. Nabi sat in the middle of the hallway. She was just sitting there, perfectly still, watching him. Her green eyes caught the light and seemed to glow. Her tail moved slowly back and forth. Hyun stared at the small creature. It was nothing. A tiny predator from a weak species. Not even worth his attention. But something about those eyes bothered him. They reminded him of something from his childhood. A memory he had forgotten. When he was young, his father had taken him hunting on their home world. They had tracked a slitherwing through the crimson forests. The slitherwing was an apex predator, feared by all Velkari. When they finally found it, the creature had looked at young Hyun with those same eyes. Patient. Calculating. Waiting. The slitherwing had attacked 3 seconds later. Young Hyun still had scars from that day. Nabi meowed softly. The sound broke Hyun's thoughts. He shook his head, feeling foolish. It was just a cat. Just a harmless pet. He walked past the small creature, giving it a wide berth. Nabi watched him go, her head turning to follow his movement. Then she stood, stretched, and walked away in the opposite direction. Her paws made no sound on the metal floor. In his quarters, Hyun tried to access the Academy network to research humans. The files were limited. Humanity was too new to the Galactic Council. There were basic facts they came from a planet called Earth. A high-gravity world with extreme environmental conditions. They were omnivores. They had no natural weapons or armor. They had developed space travel only 200 years ago. There was one note that caught Hyun's attention. It was from the First Contact Team's report. Humans refer to themselves as persistence hunters. They pursue prey over long distances until the target collapses from exhaustion. Recommend further study of human combat psychology. Hyun closed the file. Persistence hunters. It meant they were patient, enduring, but that did not make them dangerous. The galaxy was full of patient species. It did not mean they could fight. He was wrong, of course. But he would not learn that until the combat assessment. And by then, it would be too late to prepare. Outside his door, Nabi sat in the shadows. She was hunting again, but not for food. She was learning the layout of the station, memorizing the scents, understanding the rhythms. This was her territory now. And Lieutenant Tay had taught her long ago that territory must be understood before it could be protected. The cat's green eyes watched Hyun's door for a moment longer. Then she moved on, silent as a ghost, mapping her new domain. The combat training hall was packed. Word had spread through the entire academy. Lieutenant Tay's first assessment class would include Cadet 13. Every cadet who could find an excuse to be there had arrived early. They filled the observation galleries above the main floor. Even some off-duty instructors stood in the back, curious to see what would happen. Lieutenant Tay entered through the main door. He wore standard training gear, simple pants, and a fitted shirt. No armor. No visible weapons. Nabi walked beside him, her tail held high. Several cadets in the gallery pointed and whispered. The small cat seemed unbothered by the attention. Commander Day stood near the training mats. Lieutenant Tay, are you certain about this? Yes, Commander. Tay's voice was calm. Combat assessment is part of the curriculum. I need to see what level the cadets are working at. Cadet 13 is not a typical student. I understand. Tay stretched his arms over his head, loosening his shoulders. That's why I want to assess him first. The cadets entered in formation. 20 students from various species, all wearing standard training uniforms. Hyun stood at the back of the group. He was taller than everyone else, his 4 arms crossed over his chest. His compound eyes fixed on Lieutenant Tay with obvious contempt. Good morning, Tay said. I'm Lieutenant Tay. I'll be teaching combat theory and tactical analysis this semester. Today we're doing combat assessments, so I can understand your current skill levels. This is not a competition. This is diagnostic. I need to see how you move, how you think, how you react under pressure. Will you be fighting us yourself, Lieutenant? The question came from a cadet named Yuna. She was Sereth, small and timid. Hyun had bullied her before. Her voice shook slightly when she spoke. Some of you, yes, Tay replied. Others will spar with each other while I observe. We'll start with volunteers. Anyone want to go first? Hyun stepped forward immediately. I volunteer, Lieutenant. The training hall became very quiet. Everyone knew this moment was coming. But now that it was here, the tension was thick enough to cut. Tay looked at Hyun for a long moment. Then he nodded. All right. Cadet 13. Let's see what you can do. They walked to the center of the mat. Hyun towered over the human by more than a foot. His 4 arms flexed. His chitinous armor gleamed. He looked like exactly what he was. A perfect war machine. Tay looked small by comparison. Human, soft, vulnerable. Rules, Commander Day announced. This is training. No strikes to kill zones. Stop when I call stop. Understood? Understood, Tay said. Hyun said nothing. He was staring at the human, calculating. He would charge first, use his superior reach and strength. The human would try to dodge, but Hyun was fast. He would have all 4 hands on the human within seconds. Then it would be over. Begin, Commander Day said. Hyun charged. His 4 arms reached out to grab, to crush, to dominate. He was fast, just as he had planned, but Tay was faster. The human moved like water. He slipped under Hyun's first 2 arms, stepped inside his guard, and struck. It was not a hard strike, just a precise tap to a nerve cluster below Hyun's lower left shoulder. Hyun's entire left side went numb for a second. He unspun, trying to catch Tay with his other arms. But the human was already gone, moving to Hyun's blind spot. Another strike, this time, to the back of Hyun's knee. The leg buckled slightly. The watching cadets gasped. No one had ever seen Hyun lose his balance before. Hyun roared and swung wildly. He was stronger than Tay, much stronger. If he connected, the fight would end. But he could not connect. The human moved with a precision that was terrifying. Every movement was efficient. No wasted motion. No unnecessary effort. Tay ducked under a punch, swept Hyun's supporting leg, and used the Valkyrie's own momentum to send him crashing to the mat. Before Hyun could recover, Tay had control of 3 of his 4 arms. The holds were perfectly positioned. If Hyun struggled, his own arms would hyperextend. Stop, Commander Day called. Tay released Hyun immediately and stepped back. He was not even breathing hard. Hyun lay on the mat, stunned. His arms hurt. His pride hurt more. He had been beaten in less than 2 minutes. By a human. By a species he had dismissed as weak. Tay extended his hand. Hyun stared at it for a moment, then took it. The human helped him to his feet. You're very strong, Cadet, Tae said quietly. And fast. But you fight angry. Anger makes you predictable. Hyun said nothing. He returned to the line of cadets, his mind racing. What had just happened? How had the small human moved like that? The rest of the assessment continued. Tae sparred with 4 other cadets, each time demonstrating the same terrifying efficiency. He was never cruel, never showed off. He simply assessed, corrected, and moved on. During a break, Cadet Yuna approached Tae nervously. Lieutenant, that was amazing. Where did you learn to fight like that? Tae smiled. Earth has many martial traditions. I studied several of them. But the real secret is not the techniques. It's understanding your opponent. Understanding them? Every species has patterns, strengths, and weaknesses. If you understand those patterns, you can predict their movements. Tae picked up Nabi, who had been sitting at the edge of the mat. Humans learn to hunt by watching and waiting. We're patient predators. We study our prey before we strike. Several cadets heard this. They looked at each other nervously. The word predators sounded different when a human said it. After class, Hyun went straight to the academy library. He accessed every file he could find about Earth and humanity. There was more information now than there had been a few days ago. The Galactic Council had been studying humans intensely since first contact. What Hyun read disturbed him. Earth was classified as a Class 9 death world, extremely high gravity, volatile weather, numerous predator species. Humans had evolved as pursuit predators on the African plains. They hunted by chasing prey for hours, sometimes days, until the animal collapsed from exhaustion. Their endurance was unmatched in the galaxy. But that was not the worst part. Humans had domesticated predators. They had taken wolves, pack hunters nearly as dangerous as humans themselves, and turned them into dogs. They had taken wild cats, solitary ambush predators, and convinced them to live in human homes. For thousands of years, humans had lived alongside creatures that could kill them, and had somehow earned those creatures' loyalty. The file included a note from a xenopsychologist. Humanity's relationship with predatory species suggests an unusual cognitive ability. They do not fear predators the way most species do. Instead, they understand them. They think like predators. This may explain their rapid technological advancement and their effectiveness in combat situations. Hyun closed the files. His hands were shaking slightly. He had made a terrible mistake. He had assumed humanity was weak because they were small. But weakness and strength were not about size. They were about mindset. About strategy. About knowing when to strike and when to wait. That night, Hyun could not sleep. He kept replaying the fight in his mind. Every time he thought he had Tae cornered, the human had already moved. It was like fighting a ghost. Around midnight, Hyun heard a sound in the corridor outside his quarters. A soft scraping, barely audible. He got up and opened his door. Nabi sat in the hallway. She had something in her mouth. A small maintenance drone. One of the tiny robots that cleaned the air ducts. The drone was deactivated. Its lights dark. Nabi had hunted it down and killed it. The cat looked at Hyun. Her green eyes were calm and patient. Then she picked up her prize and walked away. Her movements silent and fluid. Hyun closed his door and sat on his bunk. His chest felt tight. For the first time in his life, he understood what prey felt like. Not the panic of being chased, but the cold certainty of being watched by something that already knew it would win. The next morning, Cadet Yuna found Hyun in the dining hall. She approached him carefully, ready to run if he became aggressive. But Hyun did not seem aggressive. He seemed thoughtful. Cadet 13, she said quietly. Are you okay? Hyun looked at her. Yesterday, Lieutenant Tae defeated me easily. You watched. Everyone watched. Yes. Yuna sat down across from him, still wary. How did he do it? Yuna blinked in surprise. Hyun had never asked anyone for advice before. He was faster than you expected. and he knew where to strike to disable you without injuring you. But I am stronger. I should have won. Strength is not everything, Cadet 13. Yuna's voice was soft but firm. Lieutenant Tay is a teacher. He showed you that. Well, Hyun was quiet for a long moment. Then he stood up. Thank you, Cadet Yuna. She watched him leave, confused but hopeful. Perhaps Cadet 13 was finally learning something. 3 weeks had passed since the combat assessment. The change in Cadet 13 was remarkable. He attended every class on time. He completed every assignment. He stopped picking fights with other cadets. The instructors were amazed. Commander Day called it a miracle, but they did not know the real reason for Hyun's transformation. Hyun was afraid. Not of Lieutenant Tay, though the human had earned his respect. Hyun was afraid of Nabi. It had started small. The morning after the assessment, Hyun had considered skipping physical training. He was sore and humiliated. He wanted time alone, but when he opened his door, Nabi was sitting in the corridor, directly in his path. The small cat looked at him with those green eyes. Hyun remembered the deactivated drone she had caught. He went to training. 2 days later, Hyun was in the dining hall. A younger cadet accidentally bumped into him, spilling Hyun's drink. The old Hyun would have reacted with violence. He felt the anger rising, felt his 4 hands clenching into fists. Then, he heard a soft meow from under the table. Nabi was there, watching him. The anger faded. Hyun helped the younger cadet clean up the spill. By the end of the first week, Hyun realized the truth. Nabi was everywhere. Not constantly, but at exactly the right moments. When he thought about skipping class, she appeared in his path. When he felt his temper rising, he heard her soft footsteps behind him. When he considered breaking a rule, those green eyes found him in the crowd. The cat was not just Lieutenant Tay's pet. She was something else. Something that understood Hyun better than he understood himself. Other cadets noticed Nabi's strange behavior too. Cadet Yuna had become friends with the small cat. She would spend her free time in Lieutenant Tay's office, and Nabi would curl up in her lap, purring. The cat was gentle with Yuna. Affectionate even. She's so sweet. Yuna told another cadet. I don't understand why some people are afraid of her. But Yuna did not see what Hyun saw. She did not see Nabi in the corridors at night, moving like a shadow. She did not see the way Nabi's pupils dilated when she focused on something, transforming from friendly pet to pure predator in an instant. One afternoon, Hyun was studying in the library when he heard cadets talking in excited whispers. He listened, without appearing to pay attention. Did you see what Nabi brought Lieutenant Tay this morning? No. What? Another maintenance drone. The 3rd one this week. Where is she finding them? I heard she also caught one of the station rats. You know, those pest animals that live in the ventilation system? That's impressive. The maintenance crew has been trying to eliminate those rats for months. Hyun felt a chill run down his spine. Nabi was not just catching these things for fun. She was hunting. Actively hunting. The station was her territory now, and she was removing anything she considered a threat or a nuisance. That night, Hyun could not stop thinking about it. He accessed his datapad and searched for information about Earth cats. The files were limited, but what he found was disturbing. Cats were ambush predators. They hunted small animals, birds, rodents, insects. But they did not hunt because they were hungry. They hunted because it was their nature. Even well-fed cats would hunt, some files noted. It was practice, play, instinct. One file included a statement from a human xenobiologist. Domestic cats are one of the most efficient predators on Earth. They have a higher hunt success rate than lions or tigers. They're also one of the few species that hunts for sport rather than just food. We love them anyway. Hyun read that line 3 times. We love them anyway. Humans kept these perfect little killing machines in their homes and loved them. What kind of species did that? The answer was obvious. The kind of species that understood predators from the inside. The kind of species that was predators themselves. Later that week, Lieutenant Tay's combat theory class covered hunting strategies used by various species. Tay stood at the front of the classroom, with Nobby sitting on his desk. The cat groomed herself lazily while Tay talked. Most predators fall into two categories, Tay explained. Ambush predators and pursuit predators. Ambush predators wait for prey to come to them. They rely on stealth and patience. Pursuit predators chase their prey over long distances. They rely on endurance and strategy. Hyun raised one of his hands. Which category are humans, Lieutenant? Tay smiled. Good question. Cadet 13. Humans are pursuit predators. But we learned to use ambush tactics too. We studied other predators and adopted their techniques. That flexibility is what made us successful. And cats? Hyun asked. He could not help himself. What are they? Pure ambush predators. Cats are one of the most successful predator designs in Earth's history. They've barely changed in millions of years because they didn't need to. They were already perfect. Nobby stopped grooming and looked at Hyun. It felt like she knew exactly what he was thinking. After class, Hyun approached Lieutenant Tay's desk. The other cadets had left. It was just Hyun, Tay, and Nobby. Lieutenant, may I ask you something? Of course, Cadet. Your cat. Nobby, is she really just a pet? Tay's expression was unreadable. What do you mean? She watches me. All the time. When I think about doing something wrong, she appears. It's like she knows. Tay picked up Nobby and held her against his chest. The cat purred, looking completely harmless. Cats are very perceptive. Cadet 13. They read body language better than most sentient species. Nobby knows when someone is agitated or aggressive. She responds to those cues. By appearing and staring at them? By making her presence known? Yes. Tay scratched behind Nobby's ears. Cats were territorial animals on Earth. They marked their territory and protected it. Nobby considers this station her territory now. She keeps track of everything that happens here. That's, Hyun searched for the right word, unsettling. Is it? Tay's voice was gentle. Or is it just different from what you're used to? Nobby isn't trying to threaten you, Cadet. She's just being a cat. If she actually wanted to threaten you, trust me, you'd know. Hyun looked at the small orange creature. She looked back at him with half-closed eyes, still purring. She looked completely relaxed. But Hyun knew better now. He knew what those eyes could become. He knew what lurked beneath that soft fur. Lieutenant, why do humans keep predators as pets? Tay sat on the edge of his desk. Because we understand them. We respect them. Cats chose to live with humans thousands of years ago. They weren't forced. They came to our settlements because we had food and warmth. Over time, we learned to coexist. They kept our grain stores free of pests. We gave them safety and companionship. But they're dangerous. Everything is dangerous, Cadet 13. You're dangerous. I'm dangerous. The difference is choice. Cats choose to live with us peacefully. We choose to respect their nature. That mutual respect creates trust. Hyun thought about this for a long time. What if the cat decides not to be peaceful? Then you leave her alone until she calms down. You don't fight a cat, Cadet. You respect her boundaries and give her space. Fighting is how you get hurt. It was a lesson, Hyun realized. Tay was not just talking about cats. He was talking about conflict in general. About knowing when to fight and when to back away. About respecting others even when they were different from you. Thank you, Lieutenant, Hyun said quietly. Over the following days, Hyun tested something. He stopped being afraid of Nobby. Not because he no longer respected her, but because he understood her better. When she appeared in the corridor, he nodded to her. When he saw her watching him, he showed her through his body language that he was calm, not aggressive, and something strange happened. Nobby stopped following him as much. She still watched sometimes, but from a distance. And once, when Hyun was studying late in the library, she jumped onto the table next to him and sat down. She did not stare at him. She just sat there, grooming herself. Hyun carefully extended one hand. Nabi sniffed it. Then, to his amazement, she rubbed her head against his palm. The purring sound was very loud in the quiet library. Hyun felt something break inside his chest. It was not fear. It was not pride. It was something new. Something like understanding. "I get it now," he whispered to the small cat. "You're not here to punish me. You're here to teach me." Nabi's green eyes closed in what might have been contentment. Or approval. Or both. The Academy's final evaluation period arrived with cold efficiency. For graduating cadets, it meant one last chance to prove they were ready for active fleet duty. For struggling cadets like Hyun, it meant everything. Admiral Sung arrived on a Tuesday morning. She was a decorated officer from the Centauran fleet, with medals covering her dress uniform. She had fought in 3 wars and commanded 4 starships. Her reputation was legendary. Her standards were impossibly high. Commander Day gathered all senior cadets in the main auditorium. Admiral Sung stood at the podium, her eyes scanning the crowd. "I am here to evaluate you," she said. Her voice carried without amplification. "Not your test scores. Not your physical abilities. I am here to see if you can think under pressure. If you can lead. If you can adapt. In 2 days, you will face a series of challenges. Some will be simulated. Some will be real. I will be watching." Dismissed. Hyun sat in the auditorium after the others had left. He stared at his 4 hands, thinking, 2 months ago, he would have welcomed this evaluation. He would have seen it as a chance to prove his superiority. Now, he saw it differently. Now he understood that strength alone meant nothing. "Worried, cadet?" Hyun looked up. Lieutenant Tae stood in the aisle. Nabi perched on his shoulder. "Yes, Lieutenant. I am." Tae sat down next to him. "Why?" "Because I do not know if I have changed enough. I understand discipline now. I understand teamwork. But Admiral Sung is looking for leaders. I do not know if I can be that." "Dumyun, what makes you think you can't?" Hyun gestured at himself with all 4 arms. "Look at me, Lieutenant. I am built for war. For following orders and destroying enemies. I am not built for making decisions that affect others." Nabi jumped from Tae's shoulder to Hyun's lap. She circled once, then settled down, purring. Hyun carefully placed one hand on her back, feeling the vibration. "Cadet 13, Tae said quietly. "You've learned more in 2 months than most people learn in years. You came here believing strength was everything. Now you know better. That's the foundation of good leadership. But what if I fail?" "Then you fail, and you learn from it. That's how growth works." Tae stood up. "Get some rest, Cadet. Tomorrow is going to be interesting." The evaluation challenges began at dawn. Admiral Sung had designed them to test every aspect of military readiness. Navigation problems. Tactical simulations. Equipment failures. Emergency protocols. The cadets worked in rotating teams, never knowing what would come next. Hyun performed adequately, not perfectly, but adequately. He followed orders. He contributed to his team. He kept his temper even when things went wrong. Admiral Sung watched everything with sharp eyes, making notes on her datapad. By the second day, the cadets were exhausted. Then the alarms went off. Red lights flashed throughout the station. A computerized voice announced, "Reactor anomaly detected in Section 7. Containment failure imminent. Evacuate immediately." Commander Day's voice came over the communication system. "This is not a drill. I repeat, this is not a drill. All personnel evacuate Section 7 immediately." The cadets ran. They had trained for this. But training was different from reality. Section 7 housed one of the station's main reactors. If it failed, the explosion would destroy half the station. Hyun was in the main corridor when he saw a group of cadets trapped behind a blast door. The door had sealed automatically when the alarms triggered. Through the reinforced window, Hyun could see them pounding on the door. One of them was Cadet Yuna. Without thinking, Hyun ran to the nearest emergency panel. The manual override controls were complex, designed to prevent accidents. Hyun's hands moved quickly, inputting codes he had memorized during training but never thought he would use. Cadet 13, what are you doing? It was Commander Day, running toward him. You need to evacuate. There are cadets trapped, Commander. It's too dangerous. The reactor will explode whether I run or not, Hyun interrupted. His voice was calm. But if I stay, I can save them. Commander Day stared at him. This was not the same cadet who had stood in his disciplinary office months ago. This was someone different. Someone better. Then I'll stay too, Commander Day said. 2 sets of hands work faster. Before Hyun could respond, he felt something small jump onto his shoulder. Nabi. The cat had appeared from nowhere, as she always did. Lieutenant Tae is coordinating the evacuation, Commander Day said, seeing Hyun's confusion. He sent Nabi to help. Help how? The answer came immediately. Nabi jumped down and ran toward Section 7, disappearing into the ventilation shaft. 30 seconds later, the trapped cadets' communication devices all received the same message. A map of the ventilation system, showing an alternate escape route. How did she? Hyun started. Cat navigation, Commander Day said. Lieutenant Tae showed me once. Cats map their territory perfectly. Nabi knows every duct and corridor in this station. She's showing them the way out. Hyun understood. The cat was not just a predator. She was a scout. A guide. Humans had learned to use their predator companions in ways that went beyond hunting. The blast door opened. The cadets poured out. Yuna grabbed Hyun's arm. Thank you. Cadet Tretan. Run, Hyun said. All of you, run. They ran. Hyun and Commander Day followed, sealing emergency bulkheads behind them. Nabi reappeared, running alongside them with her tail high. They made it to the safe zone, with seconds to spare. The reactor did not explode. The maintenance crew managed to stabilize it just in time. But no one knew that would happen when Hyun made his choice to stay. That evening, Admiral Sung called Hyun to her temporary office. He stood at attention, expecting criticism. He had violated protocol by staying behind. Cadet 13, Admiral Sung said. Today you risked your life for others. Because it was the right thing to do, Admiral. Protocol said to evacuate. Protocol did not account for trapped cadets, Admiral. I adapted to the situation. Admiral Sung smiled. It was the first time Hyun had seen her smile. Good answer. You understand that rules are guidelines, not chains. You understand that leadership means making hard choices. She made a note on her datapad. You have my recommendation for commission. Cadet 13. You will make a fine officer. Hyun felt something he had not felt in years. Pride, but not the arrogant pride of before. This was different. This was earned. The graduation ceremony was held 2 days later. Hyun stood with his class in full dress uniform. When his name was called, he walked across the stage and received his commission papers. He was Ensign Hyun now, an officer in the Galactic Fleet. After the ceremony, he found Lieutenant Tae. Nabi was with him, as always. Lieutenant, I wanted to thank you. For what, Ensign? For teaching me what I needed to learn. I came to this academy thinking I knew everything. I was wrong. Tae extended his hand. Hyun shook it. You taught yourself, Ensign. I just provided perspective, and maybe some motivation. They both looked at Nabi. The cat blinked slowly. A gesture Hyun had learned meant contentment or approval. May I? Hyun asked. Of course. Hyun knelt down. From his pack, He pulled out a small object wrapped in cloth. He unwrapped it carefully, revealing a piece of Velkari ceremonial meat, a high honor among his people, reserved for respected equals. He placed it on the ground in front of Nabi. "Thank you," he said to the small cat, "for teaching me to fear the right things, for showing me that strength and power are not the same, for making me better." Nabi sniffed the meat. Then she devoured it in 3 efficient bites. She licked her whiskers and purred. Lieutenant Tay patted Hyun's armored shoulder. "You're going to do great things, Ensign. The galaxy needs people who can learn, who can change, who can grow. You've proven you can do all 3. 6 months later, Commander Day received a report from Ensign Hyun's commanding officer. The report praised Hyun's leadership, his ability to work with diverse species, and his innovative problem-solving. The officer noted that Hyun had become the most valuable member of his crew. Attached to the report was a photo. Hyun sat at his station on a starship bridge, surrounded by his crew. On his console sat a small stuffed toy cat, orange with green eyes. Commander Day smiled. He forwarded the report to Lieutenant Tay with a simple message. "Thought you'd want to see this. Your student has exceeded all expectations." Back at the academy, Lieutenant Tay showed the photo to Nabi. The cat looked at it for a moment, then returned to grooming herself. Another cadet successfully domesticated. Another problem solved. In the corridor outside Tay's office, a new troublesome cadet was arguing with an instructor. Nabi's ears perked up. She stood, stretched, and walked toward the commotion with purpose. She had work to do. The station was her territory, and territories needed to be maintained. Hyun, far away on his starship, felt his communication device buzz. A message from Lieutenant Tay. "Nabi says hello. She's training another problem cadet now. Hope you're well." Hyun sent back a photo of the stuffed cat on his console. "Tell her I remember her lessons every day." He looked around the bridge at his crew, 12 different species, all working together efficiently. He had learned to lead them not through fear or dominance, but through understanding and respect. The way humans led, the way Nabi had shown him. Strength, he had learned, was not about how hard you could hit. It was about knowing when not to. It was about choosing wisdom over violence. It was about respecting others even when they were smaller, weaker, or different. It was about understanding that sometimes the smallest creature in the room was also the most important teacher. And somewhere on Academy Station Zenith 7, a small orange cat continued her work, one troubled cadet at a time.